Tilehurst End podcast
by Reading fans for Reading fans.
Hello and welcome to the Tilehurst End podcast extra in association with the Wokingham paper. My name is Olly Allen, your host for today's show, and once again I'm delighted to be joined by the Wokingham paper's Tom Crocker. Tom, hi, how are you?
Morning, Ollie. Not too bad, thank you. Just about thawed out from Tuesday, so...
Yeah, snow will not postpone the Tilehurst End podcast. We will go on through these rough weathers. We will talk about that Sheffield United game in just a little bit. We will start briefly with the Derby County game, a 3-3 draw between Reading and Derby County last weekend. Mark and Sim reviewed this game in a bit more depth on the main show a couple of days ago, so go and listen to that if you have time. So we'll only touch on it briefly, and obviously it sort of acts as a bit of a pretext to Tuesday's game as well. And it was actually a very entertaining game for once, which we haven't been able to say very much this season. Derby opened scoring after 6 minutes to Casey Palmer before Reading brilliantly turned it around through Liam Kelly with one of the best goals you'll see this season at the Madstad, and then Mo Barron made it 2-1. Richard Keogh then stabbed in an equaliser before half-time. Tom Lawrence put the visitors back in front less than a minute into the second half, but John Daddy Bodvarsson made it 3-3 late on with Chris Baird then sent off for Derby as well. So overall, from that recap, you can tell it was a pretty breathless game, but and actually it was a fairly encouraging performance from Reading Top, wasn't it? Attacking-wise, at least.
Yeah, it summed up quite nicely there. It was a crazy game, really. One that we haven't seen too much of. I think that was sort of a light relief, really, despite not getting a win. It was just an entertaining game, and good to see Reading actually going forwards and scoring some goals. And I think that people kind of forgave the awful defending at times, just because they managed to obviously get a point, play quite well in spells, and like you say, attacking wise, that's been probably the biggest problem most of the season, is not scoring enough goals. And they looked quite dangerous, Reading, and I think when they went 2-1 up, they looked quite good then, and they had Derby on the ropes a little bit before they got 2-1 up, and then suddenly obviously it was level again, and Van Tels behind straight after half time and managed to just about get the point. But I think defending wise it was not good enough, and the goals, all of them really, they're just really poor defending and not preventable goals probably, and they quite rightly, Jaap Stam wasn't too happy with them, and it sort of just followed on again on to Tuesday. But it's that was the biggest problem, I think, defending. But it was certainly an entertaining game. I think the people that turned up left sort of fairly happy with what they'd seen, and gave them a bit of positivity finally after the recent weeks, and a bit of encouragement going forwards. But obviously that sort of turned around again on Tuesday night.
Certainly, I think obviously we beat Derby 4-2 at Pride Park in November, so they seem to have been sort of not an easy, but I think we've certainly had some joy against them this season, considering that they are fighting right up there. As you mentioned there, we were sort of built our hopes up ahead of Tuesday for them to be brought right back down to earth again with a 3-1 defeat to Sheffield United, and it was, as you mentioned there, a shaky defence again, Reading's downfall. They started the game horrendously. Really, it was comedic. Really, I think both Laurie and Liam Moore made errors to allow Leon Clark in, and he probably should have scored, considering I think he's got about 15 goals this season. That he should have probably got them up in the lead inside 10 minutes or so. But they did open a scoring early through Billy Sharp before Mark Duffy made it 2-0 before half time with a superb strike that flew into the top corner. And as I mentioned, after all the promise of Saturday, Tom, this was an absolutely dire first half, wasn't it? And not helped at all by the fact that it was absolutely freezing cold as well.
Yeah, that didn't help at all. But like you say, I think shaky defence is putting it very kindly. It's that first half, I think, one of the worst halves of the season, and that's saying quite a lot considering some of the games that we've seen there. But I think it should have been 4-0 quite comfortably. You mentioned those couple of early chances. Leon Clark should have easily scored that right on the edge of the box. Liam Moore, he hasn't looked great in the last few weeks, and he gave the ball away on the edge of the box and just missed that one. And then Billy Sharp had one near the end of the half as well, and Reading created basically nothing going forward. I think Clement had a chance which was saved, but apart from that, I don't think they had any chances of note, and it was just Sheffield United were all over them really. And it's given what Jaap had said on Saturday about how annoyed he was with the defending, for that first 10 minutes he must have just been pulling his hair out, but he must have been just lost for words really as to what he can do about it, because it was basically exactly the same mistakes, and it was led to exactly the same questions again afterwards. And you just wonder what he can do to change it. He knows what the problems are. He's telling people what the problems are. He changed the system on Tuesday night. Of course, he went for the back five, and Joey came into the back, and just to try and add a bit of experience there, I suppose. Obviously, lost Paul McShane and Tommy Elphick, and it's just trying to add that bit of extra at the back. It didn't really work out, and obviously you had McCleary on the wing back, and he was off after 5 minutes, and I think he's going to be out for a while now again. And it's just constant injuries and constant shaking the team around, and just defensively, it was absolutely awful. It improved in the second half, but as for that first half, it was just a one to forget, and that they were just thankful to still be in it, I think, at half time.
I mean, we haven't actually had that many defensive problems sort of at the start of the season, but it's sort of obviously conceding 3 on Tuesday and 3 on Saturday. They are starting to creep in now, which is a bit of a worry, especially as now we potentially sort of solved the goal scoring problem and starting to score goals, but we're now letting too many in at the other end. But Reading did start the second half well. Of course, they got back into it to make it 2-1 after Omar Richards turned the ball home after Leandro Bacuna's free kick had been saved, and then also they won a penalty, of course, after Liam Kelly was brought down in the box. Bacuna again stepped up to take this one, but his penalty was at the perfect height for Simon Moore to keep out. Two questions here, Tom. Firstly, do you think Bacuna should have been the man to take it? I think it was actually only Reading's second penalty in the league this season. Liam Kelly scored the other one, and though I'd perhaps have liked to have seen him take it, but could you have seen Reading perhaps going on to win the game had that gone in?
As soon as that penalty was given, I thought they're going to go on and win this game. Yeah, definitely. I think they just got back into it. It would have been 2-2. All the momentum was with them. The crowd that was in there, they were getting right behind the team. It had a little bit of a feeling of maybe a turning point. I've looked for turning points for the last few months, but it really did feel like it might have been one. And if that goes in, like I say, I think Sheffield United looked a bit lost at the start of the second half, and it looked like that might be about to happen, but obviously, Bacuna's penalty. Say he's only had 2 all season. The other one, Liam Kelly, ages ago, back at Brentford, I think August, September, and he slammed that one in, and he obviously scored a great one at Wembley as well. And you have to wonder why he's been taken off penalties. Really, it seems a bit of a strange one, but I think Bacuna maybe arrived after Kelly scored that penalty, so maybe he's jumped himself up to the top spot. But obviously last season there's a lot of problems with penalties as well. They've usually scored the rebounds, but no chance of that this time. And so I think that did seem like a strange one. I'm not sure if obviously Liam Kelly was fouled for the penalty, so maybe there's something to do with that. Maybe I'm not sure if don't think he got any treatment or anything, but maybe he just didn't fancy after that. But that was a strange decision, and it was certainly obviously it proved to be a massive turning point in the game. I could see this straight away, and like you mentioned there, the defensive problems are the big issue now. I think they've been all right most of the season. It's been scoring goals have been the problem, and that's just seemed to have flipped round a bit. I think they hadn't conceded more than 2 goals in a game at all until that Sheffield Wednesday FA Cup game, and now it's 3 in quick succession, really. And that was the biggest problem. And as soon as they went 3-1 down, you couldn't really see them getting back into it again. As
for that third goal, it was Billy Sharp again, the goal scorer. There was some controversy around this, and I must admit I didn't actually see it myself. I was looking at my phone in the build-up to it, so I can't admit that I saw the build-up, but believe it was Liam Moore went down injured, so Chris Gunter kicked the ball out of play, and then upon the restart, Sheffield United looked to sort of launch the ball back to Vitor Menezes so he could start play from there, but instead of letting it go back to the keeper, Billy Sharp volleyed it into the back of the net, and Reading's defence was absolutely furious about this. I think Manona got booked for his protests. Did you have any issue with the goal, Tom?
Likewise, I didn't see it at all because I was typing about the penalty, but I looked up and it was being put into the net, so initially didn't see anything wrong with it. Obviously you get a sense straight away when so many people go and protest about it, and obviously the crowd made their feelings known as well, and I've seen it back since, and I think it was Liam Moore was holding his leg or something like that, and he got up just as Manone threw the ball out of play, so obviously we spoke to both managers after the game about it, and from the Sheffield United side they said nobody was down, nobody was injured, they didn't know what the problem was. I suppose maybe some of Reading's wayward passing they might have thought it was another one of them, but it was they launched it back in. Obviously we don't entirely know if that was being launched towards Manone or if it was a pass to Billy Sharp, we're not too sure, but Sharp played on. It's a great finish, and in fairness to Jaap Stam, he didn't try and hide behind that as a dubious goal. He said obviously it was a bit strange, but at the end of the day, they got to keep switched on until they got the ball back, and he was just more concerned about the fact they didn't defend it properly rather than they didn't get the ball back. And he said his players probably would have given it back, but that might say a bit about them. Really, he's quite scathing of his defenders in the last couple of games, and it just sort of added to the frustration really. Especially it was sort of just 2 minutes after that penalty, and suddenly then you knew it was going to be another defeat rather than feeling a couple of minutes earlier they might actually get a win. But in terms of the goal, it's obviously you can look at it a bit unsportsmanlike really, and it's not something you see too often, but you got to defend that long ball and they didn't do it, and 3-1 down, and like I say, they never really looked like getting back into it after that.
As has been the case for what seems almost like forever. Reading remain 18th in the Championship, 4 points above the relegation zone, but of course, they no longer have that game in hand to sort of fall back on. We'll move on to talk about the Wolves game in a bit, but presuming we don't get anything out of that, and I imagine we probably won't, but next Tuesday's home game with Bolton is now shaping up to be a huge encounter, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be massive for Tuesday night. I think sort of Saturday's going to be tricky, and by the end of that game, when you look at the table, there's a decent chance there'll only be 1 point off the bottom three, and Bolton are going to be one of the sides in amongst that mix. So after Tuesday night, if they lose that, they could be in the relegation zone, and then things are going to get really panicky, I think. And yeah, it's going to be a huge game on Tuesday. Obviously, it's Reading just I think 1 win in 13 now, but if they can get that win on Tuesday, they'll probably open up a little bit of a gap again. So that's the only positive we've got from the last few months, is that despite not winning these games, they're still 18th and they still have a 4 point gap to the relegation zone. That's the only positive you can really take. And like I say, they played quite well and got the point on Saturday, and you just got to hope they turn in that sort of performance rather than the first half one they turned in on Tuesday night. And if they do, they've got enough to beat Bolton, but they've got to start showing it now, really, because it's going to be the same players. There's no real players coming back in, I don't think, and they're the ones that have got to turn this around, because it's all the goals they're conceding are just simple mistakes, really.
I think it's 1 win in 14 games now in the league, certainly, and there have been plenty of rumours about Jaap Stam this week, although none about him being sacked, so we can assume that his job is probably still safe for now. But he is, in fact, if reports in the Dutch media to be believed, he's being eyed up for a couple of jobs in the Netherlands. Both Matthijs Arnen and Hurrivenen, that Dutch side, are reportedly both keen to appoint him in the summer when their respective managers depart their positions. Can you see Jaap potentially making a move back to his homeland? I
can't imagine he'll leave unless he's forced out of Reading. I think he'd rather try and see out this project that he's got here rather than going back. Obviously, he was coaching in Holland initially and came over here. So I think had he wanted to coach in Holland, he would have just stayed around there and probably got a job over in Holland as his first job. But he's obviously come over to Reading, and he's certainly not one to quit from a challenge. So unless, obviously, if things turn in the next few weeks, he could find himself out the door at Reading. But unless that happens, I find it strange if he was to decide to leave on his own accord and go back to Holland. I think he's trying to forge a bit of a career in England for now. I think it's probably a more lucrative prize at the end of it if he can get a team promoted to the Premier League, certainly. So even probably the Championship's a similar sort of budget to the Dutch leagues in many ways. So yeah, it would be a surprise to see him move on his own accord. But yeah, if they do fall into the bottom three, and the way he's speaking, he seems to be running out of ideas a little bit. So that'll be an alarm bell, I think, to the owners. And if they keep losing these games, lose the next couple, and find themselves in the bottom three, there'll certainly be a question to be asked. But yeah, I don't think his job's on the brink in terms of leaving before the weekend or anything. Just obviously they've funded that trip away a couple of weeks ago to Spain, and they're right behind him and what he's trying to do. And they obviously picked up a couple of points before Tuesday night, and things maybe look like they were about to turn again. And yeah, I think they got to stick with him now. It seems a bit late, probably in the day, to make a change, unless they've got someone lined up straight away to come in. And you have to wonder exactly what they're going to do, because it's going to be the same players here. There's no one they can bring in. So yeah, I don't think he's going to be moved on imminently, but lose the next two games. And if he's free in the summer, obviously he had a few offers. He had the Leeds job has come up, and I'm sure he'd still get offers in England, probably based on what he managed to achieve last season. So I'm sure he'd have plenty of offers were he out of work. And Holland, he could end up back there, but I don't think he would do that unless they were probably the only sort of options for him.
If he does depart, the Daily Mail will have you believe that Mick McCarthy is being lined up to replace him at the Madsstone. What are your thoughts on this one, Tom? I think personally I can't see this being much more than agent talk, obviously, with McCarthy's contract set to expire at Ipswich in the summer. Yeah, I
think you're probably right there. I think he's certainly a divisive character among the Ipswich fans. He's been there a long time now, and some of them would quite like him to stay. I think quite a lot of them would rather a change now at Ipswich. And in terms of him, say it's probably an agent sounding him out, but in terms of a move to Reading, it would just seem to go against everything that they've tried to build over the last couple of years. And whether to get him in, obviously the one thing would be he's obviously used to working on a really tight budget. So if the owners were to not wanted to put anything else in, and they wanted to just try and stay sufficient for a year or so, then maybe they would do that. But it just seems like it'd be completely opposite to what they're trying to do. And like I say, if you'd look at it, if they went down, maybe they'd try and do that. But then Mick McCarthy wouldn't want to drop down to League One. You wouldn't have thought. He's done okay with Ipswich, and yeah, it just doesn't seem like a natural fit at all, really. And it would certainly surprise me if he ended up a manager of Reading in the next few months or so.
I mean, I don't think McCarthy's a bad manager. I think he's done, as you mentioned there, he's done fairly well with Ipswich with a small budget and got them into the playoffs a couple of times, and obviously got promoted with Wolves as well, and has managed Sunderland at a high level as well. But as you mentioned there, I think it just wouldn't be the right fit at all. I think certainly if Stam were to go, I think from what we've been hearing, I think sort of the owners would certainly want to get a sort of a like-for-like replacement in, sort of try and get someone who still plays that possession type of football. We had Tiger, obviously the former owner of Reading, speaking a week as he's just taken over at Oxford, and he mentioned that they were looking between Jaap Stam and Erik ten Hag when Brian McDermott was sacked. So obviously that shows that they were very much looking for sort of a Dutch manager or a manager that sort of gives that possession philosophy. So certainly obviously Tiger's not there anymore, but you've still got Brian Teverin as technical director. So certainly if Stam were to go, you'd certainly look at Brian to sort of perhaps bring in someone of similar ilk. We move on to the weekend's game then, and weather permitting, Reading will travel to Wolves on Saturday for the tea time, 5:30 kickoff on Sky Sports. And as we all know, Wolves have basically run away at the top of the Championship this season. But if Reading can pull off a shock win at Molineux, they would actually deny Wolves from beating the 106 points record. And I think I can probably know the answer to this question, Tom, but can you see that away win happening?
Probably not, no. But you mentioned the record there, and that would be, if they were to go and win there, it would, as much as negativity has been around this season, if they can go and win there and end that record on the day, it would be a great day, obviously, for the fans that go up there, and it would suddenly instill a little bit of positivity, and it would be a memorable point in what's been a forgettable season, really. So from that perspective, that opportunity is there for them, and I'm sure the players will be made aware of it by fans on Twitter and what have you. And yeah, it's a chance. Obviously, it's on TV as well, so it's a chance for them to show themselves there. And it just obviously Wolves aren't in the greatest of form, but they're still in a much better form than Reading. If Reading get anything up there, I think it would be considered a major shock. Really, it's just the defensive issues are the biggest worry, I think, against a team who scores so many goals. And it wouldn't surprise me if Reading got a couple of goals maybe, or played quite well, but yeah, in terms of coming away with anything, I think it'd be highly surprising, and Wolves will certainly be fancying their chances to get back on track on Saturday night.
I mean, as you mentioned, they are in a bit of a dip of form, having drawn 2 and lost 1 of their last 3 games, but they do remain 6 points clear of Cardiff in second. They've scored the most goals in the division. They've conceded the second fewest goals in the division. They've lost just twice at home this season. They've been very, very impressive. Key to their success, their danger men, sort of the likes of Diego Jota, who's on loan from Atletico Madrid. And I wanted to ask you about this, Tom. Obviously, we've seen them compared to the 106 side. Obviously, a team sort of built on bargains, the likes of Kevin Doyle and Dave Kitson. What's your sort of view on sort of Wolves? Not necessarily buying the title, but how have you sort of assessed how they've gone about approaching the league this season?
Yeah, so it's a completely different approach. Of course, it is. They've used the system to their advantage, really, and got in some great players who are probably too good for this league, and they're showing it. The fact the top of the league is no coincidence. I would like to say at the start of the season I tipped them to win the league when we did the pre-season podcast. So
Mystic Tom.
Yeah, well, it's you look at what they spent and the players they brought in, they should be right up there, really. And I think they showed in spells last season as well. They were starting to do that, and they saw Reading quite comfortably at Molineux last season. They had a couple of good scalps in the FA Cup, and they've just become more consistent this season under the new manager. Has got his team playing, and apart from the last few weeks, it sort of shows how good the 106 side was, really, though, that it's looking highly unlikely Wolves are going to beat that record. And for the Reading to get 106 points with, like you say, a bargain team, it just shows what sort of team spirit can usually get you a lot further in at times. And obviously a lot of the teams in this league have spent money, so I don't think it's just this case of slamming Wolves for spending money. A lot of teams have tried it in the past and failed, and it looks like Wolves are going to successfully get up to the Premier League, which is obviously the aim, and a lot of these players they've got are already made for the Premier League, so that's the system they've gone with. That's what they tried to do, and it looks like it's been successful. And good luck to them. I suppose they'll probably take a few teams by storm in the Premier League next year, and I think quite a few teams in the Championship will be glad to see them go, really.
Definitely. How are Reading looking ahead of this one injury-wise? And obviously we saw Sonny Aluko, he missed Tuesday's game through illness, and Mo Barrow could only make the bench through injury. Are we expecting to see either of those two back at the weekend?
I think quite possibly. It was a strange one with Barrow really. Jaap Stam said he wasn't fit to come on really. I don't know why he'd have him on the bench if he couldn't come on, but I think he got kicked quite a lot on Saturday, and obviously he got fouled for the red card, and I think that was just taking its toll, and he wouldn't have been much use to Reading, it sounds like. So I think if he was on the bench, he can't be that far away, so I think he should be okay. And say Johnny Aluko was ill, and you have to hope that Jaap sounded like he might be back on Saturday. And then the other one's John Swift, which was a funny situation really. He came on 20 minutes against Derby, and we spoke with Jaap, and he said that hopefully he can maybe get 45 minutes out of him on Tuesday night, and then he was just left out altogether. And then it turns out that Jaap said that the plan was always to leave him out on Tuesday. I think they spoke with the medical staff around the Derby game and decided he couldn't play 2 games in quick succession just yet. So yeah, he's left out completely on Tuesday. The plan is to get him back for Saturday in some capacity. But you do have to wonder if maybe they might try and save him for the Bolton game, possibly. And obviously, you've got to put out a strong team at Wolves, but realistically, the Tuesday night game is the bigger game for Reading at the moment, and the sooner they can get John Swift fitter, the better, really. Apart from that, Jan Kermagant's still going to be out, and then you've got obviously the other guys are still away. McShane, Elphick, I don't think they're back just yet, which I think is a big problem for the defence, but they've got to just deal with that, really. And then it's the longer term ones. Harriet Abita obviously still away.
Yeah, obviously we saw Gareth McCleary after just 6 minutes before being forced to finish on Tuesday, and it really isn't going for him at the moment. Do you think? Obviously, we haven't seen much of him this season through injury. Is he sort of nearing the end of his time at Reading, perhaps?
It's just been such a frustrating time for him, really. Like you say, he's been out of form, and he got a big chance on Tuesday. I'm sure he would have relished the chance to get out there and show what he can do again. And within 6 minutes, he's off the pitch and he's rolled his ankle. He left the stadium on crutches, and he's going to be out for the weekend as well. So I think he could be out for a few weeks, it sounds like. So yeah, you have to wonder what impact he can have now for the rest of the season. And you look back on it, it's been about a year, if not more, that he's been out of form really since the start of last season. He started really well, and he's been dealing with injuries, have been his biggest problem, and he's obviously picked up another one now. Not a lot he could do about it really. He's put a cross in and rolled his ankle. It sums up his season, really sums up his luck this season. And whether it's the end of him, a lot depends on firstly where Reading finish, I suppose, and then secondly who the manager is and who they bring in. I think he's still got a part to play if he can get fully fit, but it's just form. He's so out of form and can't stay injury free that it's a big worry for him and the fans. Obviously, he's a big fans' favourite, but he can't seem to replicate any sort of form at the moment, which is a real shame.
Yeah, I mean he's into his 30s now. I'm just not quite sure we're going to see him. Obviously, he was on fire in 2013 to 14, the first season back in the Championship, and then didn't rediscover that until the start of last season. As you mentioned, they looked very, very promising. Got a number of goals, but then has just struggled with injuries once again, which is really a shame because, as you mentioned, he's a fan's favourite. He's been here for a long time and does have a reputation. Sort of on his day, he can be very, very good in this division. So, we'll have to wait and see when he comes back. What are you going to go for in the prediction league? Then, Tom, I haven't actually got the standings to hand, but what are you going to go for this weekend?
I've got the last couple wrong. I think I'd been a bit too optimistic, but yeah. Well, I think I said they'd lose to Derby actually. So, but yeah, I think most people are going to go for a defeat. I'd imagine this weekend. It's just the scale of it. I think it wouldn't surprise me if they need to put in some sort of reaction from Tuesday night. I think they will do that largely, but I just think the defensive problems are going to be too big of a problem. I think Wolves will take advantage of them, unlike Sheffield United. So I'm going to have to go for the heaviest defeat I think I've said. I'm going to have to go for a 3-0 to Wolves. But like I say, I think there could be spells in the game where Reading look really good, and I think it's just a couple of mistakes and they'll get punished again, and it will be... I sort of look back at it actually. I think Brighton last year, they lost 3-0 and they played alright in spells. The defensive problems I think are going to be too big of an issue, sadly, but I hope I'm proved massively wrong anyway. And then I think Tuesday night it's all focused on that one.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly the bigger game. I think obviously no one's under any illusion that the Wolves are the best team in this division by some way, and will probably go on to lift the league title. So certainly the focus has got to be more on Tuesday, and hopefully we can get a win from that one. As we come towards the end of the show then, Tom, what can we look forward to on the working in paper in the next few days? Yeah, it's just all eyes on the games really. We've obviously had a couple in the last week, and then we'll be at the game on Tuesday night as well, so we'll have stuff up from the Wolves game and on Tuesday as well against Bolton, presuming all this snow clears fairly quickly, hopefully. So that'll be up on wokenpaper.com, and I'll put it up on Twitter. It'll be at Tom J. Crocker for that. Fantastic stuff. Thanks very much for joining me once again this week.
Thanks, Ollie.
And as ever, stay tuned to the Tilehurst End for the very latest Reading FC news as well. The main show from the podcast will be back early next week with Mark and the team to look back on the Wolves game and preview that all-important clash with Bolton, before myself and Tom return next Thursday to look back on hopefully a win in that relegation 6-pointer, and then look ahead to the Leeds game the following weekend. Until then, though, thank you very much for listening, and come on you Rs.
Get social with the boys
Find them on Twitter
at the Tilehurst End.
and facebook.com/the Tilehurst End.